What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Forum, bringing you guys an update on the new ban list. So I just wanted to go ahead and just run through it real quick, give my small little takes on some of the changes on the ban list, and of course how I believe it affects us PK players, as well as the format just in general and how I feel in regard to some changes. And then I also have a few deck lists to present to you guys in terms of what I believe are some builds that I'll actually be running around with in the next format. For Phantom Knights, of course, I am going to be playing some more competitive decks in this upcoming format because I do want to jump into playing Cash as well as Despia. So I will showcase some builds for that as well in terms of how I do and the deck list that I decide to go along with. But I wanted to showcase for you guys today what I've been playing and what I've been theory crafting for Phantom Knight. So we'll go over that, but just wanted to quickly go over the list. I know the formatting for my video is a little bit different here today, so bear with me. I'm just trying to give us a little bit of a different view. I felt like it was easier actually making these deck lists online to showcase to you guys rather than having to run out and hurry up and get the cards and make changes last minute. These are things that I've been brewing. And of course, with the list, unfortunately, we didn't get much changes that actually do benefit us Phantom Knight players. Nothing came off the list that was like wildly detrimental. The first hit that we have here was Artifact Scythe, which does hurt us a little bit. I had thought about going back to playing Scythe, of course, for the next format. But unfortunately, they went ahead and they banned it a little late because, of course, that card needed to be banned a long time ago. But I was considering playing it because I know that Bestials are going to be falling out of favor due to the fact that Tier got hit so hard on this list. So, yeah, it was definitely something to consider for the next format. But unfortunately, we'll no longer be considering it, which I understand. I mean, the new Thrust, the Tactics card is pretty insane. I mean, being able to search, the Sanctum to bring it out basically, for free just by your opponent interacting with you on your turn is actually really good. So I think that was a necessary ban. Barrier Statue, of course, was a great ban as well. I know that really hurts Floowandereeze. I mean, as Phantom Knight player, we really didn't have too much an issue with the deck, unfortunately. I played the Brave package, so seeing Griffin Rider, if I had it, always helped. And then, of course, being able to just have multiple extenders without actually committing to a normal summon helps as well. And we do have access to a lot of control, so it is generally pretty easy to play through. But of course, the hardest card with playing as a deck was always D-Shifter, so it is nice to see the deck obviously falling out of favor because then we'll see less D-Shifter, despite Cash obviously main decking it. So that was nice. Kid Kalos was actually a pretty big hit. I was actually very surprised they actually did hit Kid Kalos. I know the OCG took a while to actually hit this card, but we got it off rip. I think the card is actually very, very strong, obviously, for the deck, but I think it's very detrimental and was much needed for the deck to operate as strong as you wanted it to, because losing this obviously makes it more of a toolbox deck. But honestly, this just gave it so much versatility and being able to just hit so many cards. And of course, they went ahead and they actually limited them all to one, which makes this hit even harder because, you don't have the ability to mill as many cards as you used to. That mill 5 was actually pretty detrimental. And then, of course, it put other cards on board that allow you to go into other combos. So that was a pretty big hit. Sprite Elf was actually a pretty big hit in my opinion as well. I was very surprised that they actually did end up hitting Sprite Elf because I felt like Toad was actually the better hit for Sprite. But I mean, hitting Elf obviously, was definitely a call. It can be abused in other decks, and I do think that it has a lot of versatility in just about any deck that can make it because of the fact that it has great recursion. But I don't think it really needed to be hit just yet. Maybe they're future proofing, who knows, but I didn't think it needed to go yet, in my opinion. Then, of course, all the Ishizu cards, the cards that should have never been printed ever by Konami. I don't know what Konami was thinking, even creating these cards. They all went to one. I expected some of them to actually be banned, but I believe the Shufflers were just the most annoying things ever. Yugioh and Kelbeck weren't too bad because of the fact that milling 5 isn't obviously insane. And, if your deck has less good cards to mill anyways, it becomes less important for you to even be able to see this card. Even in most mirrors, people weren't even resolving Kelbeck, just trying to avoid it altogether. So it definitely is something that I do think that, was a necessary hit on all the cards. But I definitely don't think that Kelbeck and Yugioh needed to be hit. I just think mainly the Shufflers. I mean, they stop almost every graveyard deck from being able to operate the way that they need to. And as a Phantom Knight player, it was very annoying having to deal with that. I mean, the deck can just inherently break tier boards because tier boards aren't insane. It's just the added value that the deck gets with being able to shuffle cards back into the deck. You get to control your opponent's graveyard as well as control what cards are left in your deck, which allows you to be able to have better top decks, allows you to, recycle resources and things like that. So, yeah, I definitely think none of these Ishizu cards should have been printed, but it's nice to see them go at least to one. Tier Elements, of course, at 1 is pretty good. I actually expected him to just hit Havis and maybe Sheeran. I don't think Murley was actually a necessary hit, but I think they just wanted to mitigate your ability to hit names to shuffle to create fusions. So obviously putting them all to 1 was very necessary. I don't even know the Ancient Fairy Dragon errata, so I'm not even going to speak on that because I don't want to sound stupid in any way, shape, or form. And then the rest of these obviously weren't too big of a difference. I think Lithogasm actually came off because Dinosaurs is going to be getting support very, very soon. So that was actually pretty big. But otherwise, all these other ones, I mean, I don't see or have heard of anything that's too crazy with these coming off the list or no longer being limited. So, we'll have to wait and see what people brew up and see if there's anything spicy running around. But yeah, that was actually my take on the list. I mean, obviously, I just kind of went over it and gave my take, but I definitely think it was a very crazy list and a very necessary one, honestly. Tier definitely needed to be hit. I thought in the form of a Shizu would have been the right way, but I guess them hitting everything tier element was obviously the play. So yeah, that's my take on the ban list. So let's go ahead and go through this quickly. I don't want this to be too long of a video, but I also want it to be very informative. So let's kind of move along here. So we have first PK Mikankos. This is one that I've actually most recently been testing. This is a list that is one that I've been playing more recently, even locally, and I've actually been really enjoying it. I did make a couple of additions that I have not necessarily tried out yet, but I do think are going to work very well in what I believe the combo lines can be for the deck. So we are playing it with Brave. I feel like Brave is the best way to obviously play Phantom Knights because you have the extenders and Water Enchantress, as well as having an Omni on your end board if you already have the 2 necessary level 3s to start your combo. So I think this is very important. And then our end board is actually pretty crazy in this deck. If you go uninterrupted, you're ideally ending on Savage, Apo, and IP Masquerena, or even Evil Swarm Nightmare. So it's actually pretty nutty. It's just another, obviously, PK engine, a bunch of utility, a bunch of toolboxes. A toolbox deck allows you to have access to a lot of resources, but we are playing just a regular 3 Torn, 3 Boots, 2 1. I mean, these ratios are obviously the same. Fogblade at 3, no Wing, because we don't really need the additional name. And drawing Fogblade is always better than drawing Wing. In most situations, again, since tier is gone, you don't care so much about seeing the different names and hoping you mill them. Obviously, we're not going to be getting milled like that. You do want to play the Shade Bergadine because he is a warrior, so it does help with being able to go into Soul because you don't need an effect warrior, you just need 2 warriors, and this is a warrior, so it is nice to have. Then, of course, we're playing the meanest bricks in the deck, Graph and Sir. These are the houses that I build are just made with Graphs and Sirs. I draw them all the time, but they are a necessary evil, unfortunately. You definitely want to have access to them. They do allow you to, create a pretty degenerate end board. So we do want to have access to those. We do have additional extenders. So we have our Wielder, Tracker, and the Dangers. I've actually been really enjoying the Dangers a lot more recently. Being able to reveal, obviously getting the summon and a draw is pretty good, especially when you're looking to draw additional cards to kind of kick, your combos moving forward, or if you're looking for cards to be able to break your opponent's board. I think it's very important for being able to have some kind of draw utility. And since this deck doesn't have any, and there isn't any real good draw cards, because Prosperity with the extra deck always being so tight, and then of course, Desires banishing the top 10 is so hurtful to this deck because of the fact that we play so many 1-ofs and so many, cards that we just absolutely need in terms of combo. I think that having monsters that can inherently give us the ability to draw cards is very important. But unfortunately, these are the only 2 dangers that are worth playing at the moment because Nessie just doesn't do anything for us. It's not a level 3, so it doesn't kickstart us in the right direction. The only thing it is basically a dark that we would use with Cherubini to make Bardiche. But otherwise, I think these are perfectly fine. So those are our extenders. Then this is what we're playing for the Mikanko engine. Just 2 of the Sword, 2 of the Arabesque, and 1 of the Fire Dance. So this allows us to be able to, have a lot of options. And these are actually not the worst cards to draw, because these both let you special summon from hand, 1 from grave, 1 from deck. And so if you open up one of these, you can always summon them from hand if need be. Or you're able to use this as a way to break a board. So you can equip it to your opponent's monster, attempt to summon something from deck, and then bounce their monster back to hand. So if they don't have an Omni, you do have the ability to interrupt your opponent's, guys that they have on board, or at least interrupt whatever game board state that they do have with this card. And then Fire Dance is a monster reborn for this engine. And then, of course, we have the one Emperor Noble Knight, Renaud. He's obviously the way that we're going through the combo with Isolde. So it's definitely, these are definitely necessary. And I do like the 2-2-1-1. I think that's the best way to play it right now in terms of ratio. I haven't had any issues with it as of yet. And then we do, as I said, have our Brave package. We're doing 3 Imperm. Imperm, I think, is the best hand trap, especially for a deck like this, because we don't want real hand traps. We don't want monster hand traps, ideally, because everyone's going to be playing tactics. Everyone's going to be playing thrust. But we do want a way of being able to have something that we can use on our turn as well as our opponent's turn. So it's not the worst card to top deck, because it does give us the ability to answer one of our opponent's cards, but also allows us to use this during our opponent's turn to interrupt them as well. Then we've got our Foolish, which hits everything in the deck, basically. Rhoda, which hits all of our warriors. Our Called By, which, we obviously need to be able to stop hand traps or to interrupt our opponent if we do open it and we're setting up our board. And then Droplet. This is definitely the biggest flex card going into the next format. Droplet is very good, of course, in this deck, because you do have the ability to send cards. But I think the biggest thing about Droplet is that, it's uninteractable. So, we have more traps. We have a lot of spells. We have monsters. So depending on the matchup, I know Libromancer ends on like a counter trap or a trap that allows them to be able to negate something. So in that build, I know they end on like Christia and things like that. So having access to something like Droplet, where you can like send a Fog Blade and send another monster, allowing you to play around something like that to open up your ability to play the game, is very huge. So that's why I do like Droplet the most in this deck, since we have enough traps, enough spells, and enough monsters to really utilize being able to send and negate. Obviously with Cash, it's going to be very difficult for us to be playing Droplet because of the fact of Shifter as well as Heart. They both stop us from being able to send a graveyard. So Droplet is dead in those matchups. So depending on your locals, I don't usually share sideboards, but I can definitely give suggestions. Droplet is definitely one that is the biggest flex spot in here. You can swap it out for Book of Eclipse. You can swap it out for Dark Ruler No More. I mean, honestly, anything that's just a board breaker. But in my opinion, I feel like when you're looking at the deck as a whole and you're trying to be decisive, and you are very indecisive in terms of what you want to use for breaking boards, I think Droplet is the best go-to, obviously, for this deck because of the fact that we get the most value out of it. But again, Book of Eclipse, Dark Ruler No More are very good ones. Unfortunately, in a deck like this, you can't do Lava Golem. Our normal summons are actually important because we do need that body, especially when we're starting off with we want to be able to normal summon, Faithful Adventure Search and then start our combo. So unfortunately, we do need our normal summon. So Lava Golem isn't the best in this deck, but there are other options. Definitely continue to look into the format and see what cards are going to be good, and then just make adjustments. But I definitely think that Droplet is perfectly fine, especially if you're not going to be expecting to play against a lot of cash. And if you are, just, side 3 Book of Eclipse, because going first, this card is still very good. You can set it and use it during your opponent's turn. So winning the die roll obviously doesn't hurt too much unless they de-shift to you, but going second, you definitely want to side these out for maybe a Book of Eclipse, Dark Ruler No More, whatever is suitable for you in the format. And then the last thing here is the extra deck. Very standard. I think Evil Swarm Nightmare is going to be very, very good. The card has been showing great success for me in the current format. Even with Cash not at its full potential, this card actually shuts down Cash in the current format and will be doing so moving forward. Because of the fact that it is a double Book of Moon, it does not allow them to trigger their abilities, and they pass their turn with their monsters face down, which means during your turn, you don't have to interact with them other than just getting them off the board, and they don't get the ability to use effects. So it's really, really great. I definitely think it's a very good card to blind, because in most matchups, it's still a very good card either way. The fact that you can put a monster face down means that generally they can't use it unless they are playing a fusion deck. So yeah, this is definitely a great card. Then we've got our Soul for our package. We are playing Cupid and we are playing Boral Savage. So the idea with playing Cupid and Boral Savage is that Cupid is able to make make herself a level 5 tuner, which allows you to use a level 3 to go into Boral Savage. Also, the second ability on pitch allows us to grab a monster with 600 defense, 8 or lower. So we are actually able to grab Tracker, and we're able to grab Greaves, which allows us to get an additional extension. So ideally what you're doing is when you're dumping off Bardiche, you're actually going through your Soul combo first to use Shade Burgadine and any other warrior, go into Soul. You're using Soul, get Renaud send Arabesque, Arabesque attach, summon, this attaches to this, grab Fire Dance, this goes back to hand, special. Then you're able to make Cupid. Cupid makes himself a level 5. You use Fire Dance, bring back to level 3. And then you synchro into Boral Savage. Savage allows you to obviously use the effect to equip. Cupid will trigger. You're able to get this or this. And then all you need to do is banish whatever monster you have, summon Torn Scales, and then boom. You have an additional extender that's going to allow you to either go into Breaksword, or you're going to be able to go into whatever else you need. And even in that combo, when you do that, sending Graph for Sir and Sir summoning back Cherubini, you actually end with these two on board. So that's where you get your Apo. So you'll have your Apo, you'll have your Boral Savage, and then you'll have your 2 level 3s that lets you pop, Breaksword off Bardiche, and then go into Evil Swarm Nightmare or IP Masquerena. So definitely a solid list. I like this one a lot. Actually, this one is one I prefer at the moment because I have gotten more testing in with it. I do like this combo as well. It's nice being able to have an Omni because you can ideally end on double Omni. It is very difficult though. If you do have all the extension plus right with Griffin, your board gets a little tight. So you kind of have to wiggle around to do certain things first before going into other things, because your board will get too full and you may not actually be able to end on certain things. So definitely play it very safe. But I mean, we're in a format where your opponent's going to try to interrupt you anyways. I highly doubt your Griffin's going to last on the board. You're going to go uninterrupted, because people are wanting to play hand traps next format. It's a very mixed. I mean, I hear a lot of people saying board breakers are better, hand traps are better. So it is ideal for us to have options. But again, make sure that you're being very careful on how you're setting up your board, because it will get very, very tight by the end of it. And of course, you can use the token. You do have the option to use a token for some of your combo lines if need be. So if you do negate with Griffin, you can always use the token to make IP Masquerena. I was actually playing the Flame Swordsman in here because you can do token and Cherubini to make the Flaming Swordsman as a warrior. And then all you have to do is flip Shade, Warrior, go into Isold. But I don't think it's necessary. We have so many warriors in this deck as it is. You're even able to play Junk Forward, I think it's called, where you're able to actually summon that. Yep, Junk Forward. He's a warrior. You're able to summon it first and then do your combo. You can do Kagamusha Knight. He's a warrior that's dark as well. So there are options if you do feel like you need more warriors, but ideally I feel like this is enough. Next build I have here is PK Ophion. So this one is a build for Ophion. I think Ophion is going to be really great in the next format. Card's actually very insane. It shuts down everything. All the good cards that we believe, all the good decks that we believe are going to be very good are things like Cash, Sword Soul, Despia, because it did get some support and didn't get touched on the ban list. Those are all decks that rely on summoning really big guys. And if you're able to open up Ophion and you decide that you want to even play the spell that he searches for infestation to protect him from spells, your opponent can't do anything. Yes, we are playing Fenrir in the deck because Fenrir comes out first. You're never summoning Ophion and then trying to summon Fenrir. So it is great to have that as an additional option in setting up your board. But this build ideally is more gas than anything. We wanted to have a few options like Imperm and Droplet, obviously, to be able to contest our opponent in some way, shape, or form, because we don't want to get Dweller. And if you notice, Dweller has kind of fallen out of our list as well, because we're expecting Tier to really kind of just, be neutered at this point and not be as good. So we don't have to deal with the degeneracy of certain cards. But yeah, so this is mostly gas. We've got our spell to summon Ophion. Our lineup is very similar. We're not playing Shade because he's unnecessary in this build. We are playing the 2 different traps because that is very necessary. Sometimes we do have to use both in the same turn if we want to summon Ophion on our turn. So you do have to have 2 different names because of the way that you do the combo. Then we've got our Tour Guide, our bricks. We've got Kagamusha Knight. Only reason why we're playing 2 is because it does trigger to summon, which is really bad against Cash. If they do have a full board and you're unable to draw anything to interrupt them, game 1, obviously, Tour Guide into Kagamusha Knight can hurt really, really badly. Because if you Tour Guide into Kagamusha Knight, you try to summon Graph, they're going to resolve their Fenrir, they're going to banish your Graph face down, your Sir is going to be dead, and you're going to have a very hard time climbing with Heart, Trigger, and it's too much. It's just very complicated for the deck to be able to play through a Cash board in that way. So we wanted to rely on more of the inherent summons through like E-Telly, Wielder, Tracker, even just shotgunning a danger sometimes can be very, very detrimental because they're obviously not going to respond or banish it on summon. But the problem is it does discard. So, that card will get banished. Will give Heart another attachment, which, can cause some problems. But yeah, I definitely like this list a lot as well. It's very cookie cutter. It's not a very complicated list. You can honestly swap out the Fenrirs as well for additional extenders or other board breakers. But I feel like this is very good. It gives you enough extension and enough bodies to be able to play the deck the way that you want to in terms of utilizing your level 3s. The only difference in this list, of course, compared to the other one is that we're using the more versatility that, this deck has to offer. I like the Raiders Knight into Arc Rebellion because we are spamming level 3s. We do have the ability to OTK our opponent very easily. If we're opening up things like Fenrir and Droplet, it's very, very easy to OTK our opponent because Arc Rebellion does say original attack. It does not say current attack or attack. So Droplet, negates whatever, leaves everything on board, and then you're able to just make, Arc Rebellion in one punch. So this is the regular list with Tour Guide, and then this is a list with no Tour Guide. So if you did want to play the list, continuing to play Brave, this is how I would play it. The list does go up because, of course, as we're adding these cards in, we are adding bricks or garnets that we just don't want to see, like, Dracoback, Faithful Adventure. We've got these. So there are quite a few cards that you just don't want to see when playing this type of deck. But of course, being able to change the amount of cards that we are playing does make a huge difference in terms of, consistency, and I feel like 44 is a good number. I generally try to make my decks 45 when I am playing multiple engines and Phantom Knights, because we just need to see one Phantom Knight name plus an extender in most situations. Everything else is a freebie. So yeah, so the list is very similar. Like I said, no tour guide, no Kagamusha Knights. We're playing the full Brave package, and then we're still sticking to the 3 E-Telly and the 2 Psychics, because again, we need to make sure we have as much versatility in terms of extension as possible. We've got our 2 dark extenders, and then everything else is the same in terms of Phantom Knights and Burning Abyss. So yeah, extra deck's the same as well. So I just wanted to showcase these 3 lists for you guys. Hope you enjoyed them. Feel free to screenshot and give it a try. Let me know how you guys like it. Of course, this is my formula, my take on the deck as well. You guys have any questions or any concerns that you want to throw into the comment section below, let's definitely go over it so we can continue to transform the deck and make it better. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy my formula for today. These lists will definitely be very good. I do plan on continuing to test out Ulfion. I think he's going to be very solid in the next format. I love playing Tour Guide, but unfortunately, I feel like this is the most glass cannon version of the deck. The one with no Tour Guide playing Adventure, I feel is going to be probably the best one in terms of versatility. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know how you guys do playing the deck. And again, jump in the comment section, we'll discuss, and you guys continue to like and subscribe and enjoy the content.